Pillars of Eternity 1 Complete Edition Guide Companion Build for Kana, Kanarua. This build was made to work on Pot of the Dam difficulty, and if it works on the hardest difficulty available, it will work on all other difficulties as well. Let's create our Chanter. Let's go. First, let's say a few words about Kana and what is a Chanter. Chanter is a bard, so he is there to chant, to sing. While he sings with all of his notes, he gives passive, aggressive buffs or defensive buffs to all of his allies. And that's the main strength of the Chanter. Once he has a specific amount of chants chanted, then he will be able to cast one of his OP spells. Chanters are not only great buffers and debuffers, they're also great summoners. Now, if that's done, let's go to the leveling. So, if your main has mechanics, or if you decided to opt in for a lot to go with mechanics, then you don't need mechanics on Kana. If you don't opt in for those two for mechanics, then you need to max out mechanics on Kana on every single level. I consider that you have mechanics on a lot, so what we're gonna do here is max out 1 point into athletics, 1 point into survival, and we're gonna max out lore until the very end. Why athletics, why survival? 1 point into each for the second wind, and for the resting bonuses into damage reduction. That would be for level 2. The very first invocation, or better to say spell, that we're gonna learn on Kana as a Chanter would be the Phantom. But Rinai, the Red Ghost, he would not rest. Phantom is the best early game summon in the game, by far. So we go with a Phantom, and this is what's gonna win you fights early on in the game. The very first thing from the talents that we're gonna learn will be the Ancient Memory, more endurance for all allies. On level 3, we're sticking with lore, 2 points into it. And now in phrases, we learn the song that Chanter is gonna sing as a passive. So invocations are actives, phrases are passives. And this is a very easy one. We're gonna learn dull the edge, blunt the point. So we're gonna reduce damage that we receive from enemies. We go to level 4. Again, sticking with lore. And we say next. And for the invocations here now, we're going to learn white worms rooted in the bellies of the dead. Huge. This is basically a corpse explosion, okay, with very, very solid early game damage. So we're gonna go with white worms. For the next talent, we're gonna upgrade Ancient Memory with Beloved Spirits, of course, even more endurance for allies in the area of effect for the Chanter. On level 5, we're sticking with lore. Now, if your main is a ranged character, you're gonna go with a Sure-Handed Ila for additional reload speed and ranged attack speed. If your main is a melee, then we're gonna go with 1 doesn't stood against the power of the Saint, or better to say protection against fright and terrify. So in this case, cause I'm playing a melee, we're gonna go with this one. If you play as ranged again, you go with Sure-Handed. On level 6, we're sticking with lore. And for the next invocation, we're gonna take early paralyze in the game. At the sound of his voice, the killers froze stiff. This is 11 seconds paralyze on enemies, okay? You completely disable enemy for 11 seconds. He's a sitting duck. You can easily kill all enemies in the area of effect that you paralyze. Crazy good thing. Out of all of these invocations, this is definitely the best one. Even better than all the summons and everything else. For the talent, we're going into offensive, and we're going to take marksman. For the level 7, we're keeping the points for level 8 to max out lore. We say next. And now we can take Sure-Handed Ila for ranged attack reload speed and attack speed. The bigger the attack speed and reload speed, the more pain you deal. You shoot faster, yeah. For the level 8, we're sticking with lore. For the invocations, we're gonna go with Shatter Their Shackles, Cast Off Their Chains, Protection against Hobblestuck, Paralyze and Petrify, way too good to skip. For the talents, we're gonna go into offensive, and we're gonna take Gunner for the reload speed, because we plan to play Kana with pistols and similar things. For the level 9, we're going with lore. And for the phrase, we're gonna go with the Dragon Trash, Dragon Veil, constant damage over time, burning and slashing damage with this phrase is absolutely nuts. For the level 10, keeping the points for lore for the next level, we say next, and now there is no thinking about it, we go with oh, but knock not on the door of Urdel and Gurdel. Urdel and Gurdel are two ogres that you summon, okay? They hit like a truck. They're tanky. This is probably the best summon in a game, especially around mid-game. Out of all of those trinkets to summon and so on, this is the best freaking one on a Chanter. Nothing to think about. We're taking Urdel and Gurdel. Okay, best shit in the game. And from that moment on, you're only gonna summon Urdel and Gurdel whenever you can. They win fights. Now, weapon focus. If you plan to play with a bow, you go with a bow focus. If you plan to play with a pistol, pistol focus. Plan to play with a blunderbuss, then it's blunderbuss, and so on and so forth. Depends what range weapon you want to use on Kana. Okay, in this case, in this build, we're going with two-handed pistols. So we're taking Ruffian as the weapon focus. On level 11, we're going again with lore. We say next. And now we're gonna take the Silver Knights, Shields Broke, Bow Arrow, and Blade. Or better to say, plus 10 flat deflection friendly aura. Thank your allies all around Kana. On level 12, we're skipping points for the next level for lore, and here in invocations, if you play on Pot of the Damned, we're gonna take the Bright Code their ruse and set to make them pay, or better to say, we're taking flat increase to the chance to hit because of perception. That's for Pot of the Damned. If you play on hard and below normal, story, and so on, then you can go with Flare Up Might instead of this one. So this one is for Pot of the Damned, this one is for all other difficulties. In this case, we're sticking with a Bright Caught in the ruse and set to make them pay. And now for the talent, we're taking a penetrating shot because enemies are getting tankier and this is damage reduction bypass. You're already way too slow with pistols, blunderbusses, and so on. So 20% attack speed won't change much, but this damage reduction bypass, enemies will feel the pain when Kana shoots them. So penetrating shot it is. On level 13, we're taking lore and we say next. And this one is very simple for the phrases. We're taking the defenses against Confuse, Dominate, and Charm, the three most irritating things in a game aside from Paralyze, Stun, and Terrify. So they shielded their eyes, giants, the Vampires gaze. That's the phrase that we're gonna learn. On level 14, keeping the points for level 15, we say next. And for the invocation, we're gonna learn what row Naka found down the deep, or better to say now, Kana can summon a Swamp Spore. Swamp Spore, as a summon, can charm, dominate enemies so they fight for you. So with one summon you get basically two summons when you summon a Swamp Spore. Yeah, very good summon. Now for the talent, we're gonna take Apprentice Sneak Attack for the extra range damage percentage, okay? Because a lot of your companions will be able to deal a lot of crowd control effects and you're gonna trigger sneak attacks non-stop. On level 15, we're going with lore. And we say next. And now Kana is the dragon killer. Dragons are beasts. With all your strength, slay the beast is the dragon killing phrase. And this is the phrase that you want to use when fighting dragons. Dragons are the main bosses in a game. You want to have Kana against dragons and those fights will become drastically easier with this phrase. It's absolutely nuts. It makes dragon fights easy, even on Pot of the Damned. For the final level, we're gonna take all points into 1 point into stealth and all other points will go into athletics, and this is how we end up with skills. And now comes the final invocation, the best one in the game, call to his bidding, the ancient instruments of death. You summon a greatsword, a pike, and a warbow. Those three summons, they hurt so freaking much, it's unreal, basically how OP this invocation is, but it takes a lot of time in combat for the invocation to work. So on big fights that last long, you're gonna find Call to His Bidding absolutely crazy good. The other one, Boil Their Flesh from Skin to Bone, is great, for example, on a second or a third run in a game, so you test out how it works and so on, but nothing can switch for this. They just waiting you to cap, they just waiting you to skip. For the final talent, we're going into defensive talents where we're gonna take superior deflection for some extra defenses on Kana. And that would be the leveling for Kana Rua as a Chanter. Chants. How do chants work? These are your chants and these are your spells on the bar. Over here where it says edit chants, you click on it and you remove all of this. You got 4 different prepared verses, so you chant. Early game, you're gonna use this one at the sight of their comrades. When fighting Kit, humans, Aumuas, and so on, you're gonna use Dull the Edge. During mid-game, you're gonna use 1 dozen stood against the power of the Saint. When you become OP in the mid-game, you wanna go with Sure-Handed Ila for additional action speed, for ranged especially if your main character is also ranged. This is a must-have. When fighting bunch of enemies, you're gonna use the Silver Knight's Shields, Broke, Bow, Arrow, and Blade for the extra deflection. This is especially useful if your main is a bruiser. Okay, so this one is useful for ranged. This one is very useful chant for bruisers. So if you have more bruisers in the team, you're gonna use the Silver Knights. The Dragon Thrashed, the Dragon Veiled is probably the best chant mid-game that you can equip because it melts enemies non-stop in the area of effect when you play as Kana. When fighting mushrooms, spores, or any mages that are capable of dominating or charming your team, you gotta go with they shielded their eyes so you can defend against charm, confuse, and dominate. So you only learn this phrase once you encounter those freaking mushrooms, especially while delving into Odd Nua. At the end, the last phrase that we're gonna use only when fighting dragons is with all your strength slay the beast, and this is the one that you should prepare like this when fighting a dragon, and then you just pick up, mark it, and now you got chant number 4 against dragons and so on. This is how you use the chanter. As long as this is in effect, chanter chants, this is the area of effect for the chanter, and that's about it. Very simple to play. Once he has enough phrases, he will be able to cast one of his spells. And that's it. Do not forget to trigger the penetrating shot. Spell that you're gonna use a lot would be Ogres, because it's definitely the best one. And this is probably the thing you're gonna use in like 90% of time in the game. Itemization for Kana Rua. For the armor, Blade Golan is a very good armor. You can also consider taking Raiments of Whale Eyes, Hand and Key, also great armor on Kana, Elrin's Jacket, Angios Gambizon, and Sun-Touched Mail of Hiran-Rat. Those 6 armors that I showed are the best armors to equip on Kana. Your choice what you wanna go with. Now, for some reason, I recommend taking Raiment of Whale's Eyes. First of all, it's light, and second of all, enemies, especially on Pot of the Damned, they tend to go for Chanter. Like, Chanter is the only unit on the screen when combat starts. Everyone's gonna focus Kana. And this one grants him mirror image, so he can survive longer. This is a great defensive spell, wizard spell on a Chanter. So I recommend playing with Raiment, definitely, when you find it, for your armor. For the cap, using Helm of Darksea. For the extra perception, of course, hit more often. For the amulet, Voice of the Mountaintop, chance less. The area of effect for chance is 20% bigger. For the bracers, flare up deflection, so he can remain live longer. Fortitude reflex will, ring of protection. Here, Snurf's folly, a bit of resolve, a bit of constitution. For the belt, extra might, so he hurts more. And for the boots, shot in fate, consecrated ground on Kana when he gets hit. Why I also explained. That's why I say this in combination with boots. One gives him mirror image, the other one gives him healing over time. Enemies tend to focus Kana, you want him safe, and that's why this gear. As far as weapons go, I was using Forgiveness on Kana. It's a great one. Also, you can use Blunderbuss, Lead Spitter, and weapons that you can consider using, but that depends highly on your build. If you opted in for Arquebus or Blunderbuss or Flare Up pistols, okay? So the pistols that you can use would be these 3: Spellstroke, Sengaram Spark, and Dulcanail. The only good Blunderbuss in the game would be Skon Mika's Roar and Lead Splitter. And as far as Arquebuses go, these 2 are absolutely great. but the best thing that you can use by far would be the Forgiveness for this build. That would be it for Kana. Very simple to play, provides a lot of good constant buffs to your allies. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and I'll be seeing you on the next one. Thanks for watching.